Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night. Whatever time of day it is, and whatever day it is, I want to thank you for listening to another episode of AJH Politics. You know what? I don't know exactly which episode this is off the top of my head right now, but what we are going to talk about is we're going to talk about the county commission meetings on June 4th, as well as the press release on June 5th, as well as the county commission meeting on June 8th. That's the Shawnee County, Kansas Commission that we're talking about. I'm Eric Herman. I'm the Libertarian candidate in 2026 for Shawnee County Commission District 1. So without further ado, let's go ahead and let's get started on this episode, as I hope that it's not too terribly long. The meetings themselves were fairly short, and I just want to kind of do some highlighting of some of this stuff. This is actually episode 10, by the way. I was able to look that up. So on June 4th, basically, just so you know, they spent $4.1 million on vouchers. That's basically money that they've already promised to send out the door. And some of that money, about 88,000 on road brooms, 80,000 on trailers, 74,000 on tennis court constructions. I want to talk about trailers and road brooms, which I'm assuming are street sweepers. It sounds like it's heavy industrial equipment, and getting these things leased to do projects, it is what it is in terms of that. It does just beg the question of, would it be cheaper just to buy these things? I don't know. I did have a comment in one of my videos, and thank you so much for commenting. I really do appreciate it. And it was kind of critiquing me on my critique of the board's spending, I don't remember the money, but it was like $40,000 to install picnic tables, heavy duty metal, rubberized, mounted into concrete, 24 picnic tables at Gage Park. And I was being critical of it, and he kind of commented to me on it. And my comment back was basically the idea of, I just really disagree with me all you want. That's perfectly acceptable, and I appreciate that. I want to make certain that the voters are just very kind of aware of how hypercritical I am of spending. That's what I'm trying to, I guess, sell myself on. And if you disagree with it, by all means, don't vote for me. But if you're looking for somebody that is going to be critical of that stuff, yes. Now, on the June 4th meeting, some interesting things happened. And in case any of you are watching from nowhere close to Shawnee County, it was a few years back. I thought it was the city of Topeka, which is in Shawnee County, bought a hotel that's connected to the event center. And a lot of people were rather upset about the government spending a lot of money on buying a business when they're in debt, as well as, government interference into business and things like that. And so anyway, at this particular Shawnee County meeting, now they have a bond for an industrial revenue bond that would basically let them have 0% sales tax and waive 10 years of property tax on rejuvenating this hotel. And it's just kind of like when you think about the taxation, like taxation is theft. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about spending and where I agree with it if you think of government as a necessary evil. But imagine if you wanted to take money from your neighbors to go buy a McDonald's, so that way you can earn money from the McDonald's, and then you also give yourself permission to not have to pay sales tax to reinvigorate the McDonald's, and then you also say that you don't have to pay property taxes on that McDonald's. And meanwhile, what does your neighbor do? Your neighbor is still paying taxes, your neighbor is still paying sales tax, your neighbor is still paying property tax. And it's just so shady sounding, at least in my head, with the way that I think of it. But moving on past that, the other things were they did generate $12,000 in revenue for fireworks stand permits, which, I think anybody should be allowed to buy fireworks however they want. It is what it is. The health department, I think this is to spend $11,000 in-home nursing is what I have written down. Not a fan of that. Oh, yeah, here's another amazing thing that happened at the June 4th meeting. Speaking of things that should get you upset about the government. They also all voted to give everyone a 3% raise. Now, this is for not unionized persons because their union contract dictates their pay. But the county commission board all voted for them to have a 3% raise. The department heads, so that's like the parks department, the weed department, the health department, the public works department, they all get a 3% raise. And then they also have classified and unclassified workers. They also all got a 3% raise, or at least a 3% raise. The Department of Weeds might have gotten a 4% or something like that, but just to round down to 3%, they voted unanimously, 3-0, to give everyone raises. And then they also got $68,000 to spend on grading here for Gage Park. Now, this has nothing to do with the actual surface in terms of whether it's going to become a concrete parking lot or a sand volleyball pit or grass seed just to turn it into lawn. They didn't talk about that, or at least I don't have notes on it. But that's just for the grading. Not a big fan of that. Let's see here. The June 25th meeting is going to be canceled. There was no public comment. They had a little bit of admin communication talking about a golf tournament. Aaron Cook's going to be phoning in on one of these meetings in the future. There was the ribbon cutting at a new tennis court, and there was the art fair coming up, and there was no executive session. Then the next day on June 5th, there was a press release about a battery storage data center getting built here in Shawnee County, or at least the idea of releasing that to the public, that this is going to be up for discussion and vote here coming up. So that actually moves us on to today, which is June 8th, 2026. Most of the meeting was a presentation from Benish, from the Public Works Department in Benish, which is a civil engineering firm, about an Auburn Road extension, which, if you don't know, Auburn Road is a north-south running road on the west side of the county, which is in the district that I'm in. It would go all the way south to the Interstate 335, all the way north, crossing the Kansas River to connect to U.S. Highway 24. They're basically doing a, what do they call it? Not a survey, a study. There we go. They're basically spending $750,000 on this study. And according to the meeting, 65% of that is being done by Benish, the company, and 35% of it is being funded by KDOT. Now, KDOT is a state organization. This is costing the county currently $0. But the goal is assuming that this study goes well and it has proof of concept that this is good for infrastructure and things along that nature, that then the county could then go ahead and apply for state and federal funding to help build this road. And when I ran for Kansas House 53 last year, and I call myself a libertarian, not an anarchist, because I do believe in minimum government. I do believe that government does have a certain responsibility to the land that it owns. Like I've talked about Parks and Rec. If you're going to own the park, you better keep the park nice. And not to say I believe that you have to buy a new water slide every 10 years, but you do have a certain responsibility to that. I also think that the government has a certain responsibility towards infrastructure, or maybe things that function in terms of monopoly, like electrical power. It doesn't make sense for there to be 30 different companies all running your 30 different power lines throughout the whole neighborhood, and then you can decide which one power line you want to hook up into. And roads also kind of fall into that idea where you've got point A and you got point B, and as far as being on a flat plane, there's one shortest distance, and that's the straight line between them. And even if it's, up and then right or whatever, there's kind of like this one path that you can more or less take to get from point A to point B that is inherently the best path. And so I can kind of understand why the government is responsible for roads. And as far as whether or not this is a good idea or not, especially considering this is a huge investment, they talked about this taking 20 to 25 years before this sort of project is actually ever going to be complete. It's in this district. I would love, if I was like on that board, I'd be like, hey, town hall, like coffee shop meetup, like be a voter that's invested in the action, and tell me what your opinions are. I tend to agree with this idea, just in the sense that it's would put in place significant infrastructure that would really help grow the city and the community in terms of business and residents and things along that nature. So interesting enough, currently costing the county nothing, but it's definitely going to cost the county a lot of money. And having a good study helps you get more money from the state and the federal government, which, again, taxes, not exactly a big fan of them. I get it. But as I'm trying to instill in you, I'm not just voting against everything. I'm trying to pick things that I think will most benefit the community. And I don't know if $40,000 on picnic tables is the best way to do that when that sort of money could just help kind of reduce the overall price tag of something like getting the Auburn Road connected up from the interstate all the way up to Highway 24, giving a nice bypass of the city on the west side where you can kind of alleviate some of that traffic along Wanamaker and really develop the area. But anyway, let's move on. So then they opened up to public comment, of which there were several people that spoke, but there was a couple people there talking about being against these data centers, and they both mentioned being affiliated with the Democrat Party, and they also talked about it being a partisan issue, which I just thought was kind of ironic because as someone who consumes generally more right-wing or conservative media, it seems like there's a lot of right-wingers and conservatives that are against these data centers. In fact, if I was to say I would say it's not a partisan issue. I would say it's a bipartisan issue that we do not want these centers. And the people that were speaking against them were speaking about it, I would say, more from an environmental standpoint about the usage of energy and the usage of water. My personal opinion is I don't know what the government needs all this data for. I don't want a big government having a bunch of big data centers to track people with or whatever. I'm a little bit more of the tinfoil hat wearing person, and their argument was a little bit more of the tree hugger argument. But either way, our opinions were the same. So I guess I don't have much else to say about that. We'll move on. The other thing was basically just a couple people actually talking about the Auburn Road and thinking that it's a good idea. Oh, and I should highlight right now, since I happen to bring up this stuff about Benish, the company that's doing this. I am a drafter at a civil engineering firm. PEC is the company, which is kind of a big competitor of Benish. And so I just want to just get that out there in terms of where I'm at. I do get involved. My job is, even though I work for a private company, inherently funded by taxpayer dollars, and that's, I want to make that transparent, and I want to make the idea that when I look at jobs, I don't care if it's PEC or Benish or whomever that's kind of spearing this. I want to find the best engineering firm, aka best value for the lowest dollar, and as well as with the contractors and things like that, of spending taxpayer money as wisely as possible. So with that basically ended the meeting. There was no executive session. The admin time talked about the ribbon cutting at the tennis courts as well as German Fest this past weekend, which I was not able to attend. But anyway, that basically wraps up episode 10 here for AJH Politics. I want to thank you a lot, and I'm Eric Herman, and I'm running for Shawnee County Commission District 1, and I appreciate your vote. Thanks for watching. Bye.